Hi, good morning everyone, and welcome to week 3 of Comes 100. So we're a little less than halfway through this semester. Looking at the next couple weeks, let's talk first about what's due. So everybody, people turned in their self-intro speeches last time. Good job. You should see the grades. Hopefully you got, I sent an email to everybody. So hopefully you got that with some individual feedback. But then also your grades are posted on Blackboard. And then also the first quiz closed. So those first 3 assignments, we've closed the chapter on that. Looking ahead, a few people have already done this already, but everybody should be working on the quiz for chapters 3 through 5. So have that done by Friday night. And then also in the next 2 weeks, what we're going to be working on is your next speech. The next 2 speeches, actually, we're going to be doing what are called informative speeches. And so an informative speech is basically what it sounds like. You are informing the audience about something. So this first one is going to be a how-to speech. And then the next speech that you will do will be an informative, just kind of a general informative speech. So if you want to talk about World War II or unicorns or the history of Sesame Street or whatever, excuse me, whatever you want to talk about is fine for the second one. But for this one that we're going to focus on, you're going to be teaching us how to do something. So for this lecture today, what I'm talking, it would be helpful if you would have the how-to speech information that I put under the speeches folder in Blackboard available for you. And then also we're going to be talking about stuff in your book from page 340 and 341. Okay, so the how-to speech, and as far as due dates go for the how-to speech, so again, I will be collecting a rough draft of an interview. Hold on, I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right dates. So I'm going to double check the syllabus. Okay, so the how-to speeches on the syllabus are due on the 20th. So that's 1 week from today. So next Monday, it'll be the same process. You'll upload your speech, you'll put your name, and you'll put how-to speech. You will attach to that. For this one, it will be your outline, and then you'll have a works cited. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you'll attach the link to your YouTube video. And so I have rough drafts intro due by the 15th and the quiz chapter 3 through 5 due by the 15th, but I will accept both of those up until Friday. So I'll give you a little extra time. I know this is all tricky and we're working with the time. So April 15th is Wednesday. The sooner you get your intro into me, the sooner you get your quiz done, the better. But I will give you up until Friday and it won't be counted as late. Okay, and the purpose of turning in these intros early is so I can give you feedback and then you can have a better speech. So it's not just busy work. There is a method to my madness. And like I said, I want to give you feedback before you present your speech. So that's why I'm having you turn them in early. But then also it's part of your grade. So 70% of your grade is the speeches, but then 30% of your grade are the quizzes and these intros. And so basically that last 30% of your grade, it's just the quizzes and the intros that you turn in. So, you know, if you're not doing great on the quizzes or if you forgot one or something like that, this gives you a chance to get some easy points because basically if you turn it in, you get the points for it. Okay, so those are the due dates coming up. Today, what I want to do, I'll talk today and Wednesday about the how-to speeches. Today, I'm going to talk about the speeches in general because we're going to do something a little bit different with the outline and stuff. And then Wednesday, I'm going to talk about visual aids. Okay, so again, if you have the document, the how-to speech document available to you, that's great because, like I said, I don't have the program where I can show you a PowerPoint at the same time or something like that. So if you have this with you, it will be helpful to go along. All right, so for this speech, you're going to be teaching the class how to do something. And again, your first thing is choosing a topic. This speech is 5 to 8 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're choosing a topic that is appropriate for those time lengths. So you don't want to choose anything that is so easy. Well, first of all, you want to think about your audience too. Okay, so you're thinking about your audience and you're thinking about the time. So you don't want to choose anything that's so easy for your audience. So in the past, I've had students do like how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or how to tie your shoes, or the shortest one I think I've ever had was how to make Kool-Aid. Okay, these topics, not only are they not appropriate because they don't take up to 5 minutes to explain how to do them, but also they're not appropriate because if most of the class already knows how to do what you're talking about, then it's probably not a good topic. That's something that isn't going to be interesting to them. It's just going to be redundant, and so it's not something that makes sense for your audience. And again, you want to assume that we have a classroom audience because normally when you are giving these speeches, you're going to have an audience. So think about that. But then you also don't want to pick a topic that's too hard or too complex or too confusing that you're going to go longer than 8 minutes, or if you stay within the 8-minute time frame, people aren't going to understand. So people don't have to leave here experts on the topic, but they should have a pretty good idea of what you're doing. So the longest, well, I had 2 for the longest how-to speeches. So one was his hobby. He like took, it was very cool actually. He took pieces of like iron or steel or whatever, and he handcrafted etched swords. That's what he did in his free time in his life. And it was a amazing process. The finished products were beautiful and gorgeous, and so it was awesome. But it took like 20 minutes for him to describe everything that he was doing. And then another one which could have worked. So oftentimes, not often, but probably once every couple of semesters, somebody in one of my classes will do some sort of origami, how to fold this type of origami. And that is a fine topic usually. The mistake this student made was he actually had the whole class fold the origami along with him. And so because some people took quite a long time to get some of the folds done, that was a problem. So had he just demonstrated it, it would have been completely in time. But because he had everybody working along with him, that was a problem. Now this won't be a problem in this speech because you won't have an audience to get involved. But you do want to keep it in mind in general how, getting your audience involved can take a lot more time than you might consider to start with. Okay, so you want to pick a topic that is a topic that's appropriate for a 5 to 8 minute speech, something that will benefit your audience. It's going to provide them with new information, stuff they haven't already learned before, but also something that's not too complex. So another example for that is I've had a couple students, probably 3 or 4 over the years, who have done how to solve a Rubik's Cube. Okay, and these guys were really good. They could solve it in seconds, that type of thing. And if anybody knows anything about Rubik's Cubes, there is like an algorithm. You can buy a book and it'll tell you, okay, if there's a red square here and an orange square here, you want to turn it like this. And so there is an algorithm for solving a Rubik's Cube, but it's very, very complex. And it's hard to explain to a group of people who might not have any frame of reference for solving a Rubik's Cube. It's really hard to communicate that algorithm to people in 8 minutes. And so I've had 4 people try, and every time they've been unsuccessful as far as they've been good speeches in other ways, but nobody really understands what they're saying when they're like, okay, if the left block over here is here, you want to turn it, like it's way too confusing to try and explain that process to the audience. And so even though it's within the time, that topic might be a little too complex to try and get through to the whole audience. So again, if you're doing something that people aren't going to be very familiar with, start with the basics of it. Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute because, okay, sorry, I'm back. My dog was freaking out. Okay, so 5 to 8 minutes is what you have. You're going to teach the class how to do something. You want to make sure that it's something that's going to be interesting to your class, meaning that they would be interested in learning how to do this. And again, kind of going back, you know, if you're going to teach us how to play Fortnite or something, you want to assume that most people in the class haven't played it. And so then you'll just be giving us the basics versus trying to teach us like the finishing move for the main guy at the end. I don't even know how to play Fortnite, so that might not be a thing, but do you know what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that you are being selective with your topics, choosing something that you think will be interesting to other people in the class, and that would be at their level as well. So take your audience into account. Also, you want to be ethical speakers, so you want to make sure that you are not choosing topics that are in bad taste or that are illegal or inappropriate in any ways. You know, I do believe in free speech, but at the same time, you want to be mindful and ethical speaker. And so, you know, how to build a bomb or rob a convenience store or hotwire a car, or these are topics that people have done before that probably weren't the best. Okay. Back to being too easy though, I have had a couple of students, and this wasn't as informative, but I kind of let it go, who wanted to do more of an entertainment route with their how-to speeches. So one of the best speeches I ever had was somebody who did how to turn on a light. And that sounds very easy, right? But he was doing it in a playful way, and he had spent a lot of time doing this speech, and he talked about how, you know, with light switches you could use the pincher finger method or the side finger method. He talked about dimmer switches and lamps and all kinds of different things. So it wasn't teaching us a lot of new things. Okay, most of us knew how to turn on a light switch already, but he was doing it as a speech for entertainment, and it worked. But I would caution you, if you're going to do something like that, it's usually a lot more work to do kind of a humorous or ironic speech than it is to do a straight speech. Okay, so if you're going to do that, great, I love it. Creativity, go for it. But you want to make sure that you're putting the time and effort that you need. Because I've had students have done, I'm going to do throwaway piece of paper, and they didn't really practice and they didn't really think about it together a lot, and it just ended up being kind of a dud because you could tell it was just not prepared. Okay, so you're going to pick a speech that you teach us how to do something, and you want to make sure it's a 5 to 8 minute speech. Everybody did pretty well with time. I imagine it's easier when you can retape yourself if you go out of time. I don't know if that was the case, if there was a lot of retaping going on, but everybody did really well with time for this one. Okay, just like last time, you'll be turning in a typed outline for your speech. Please make sure that it is in outline form. So when you look at the rubric, well, I don't have the outline part, but when you look on the rubric on Blackboard, the second page of the rubric is a specific outline that says exactly how the outline should look. So please make sure you follow it in outline form and not in paragraph form or essay form, because I want to know that you know the different parts of the speech and what they mean, and that you can create that speech correctly. So please turn in an outline, not an essay. Okay. And that should be typed. The other thing for this speech is you have to have sources. So last speech, you did an interview with somebody, you quoted that person in your speech. For this speech, you are going to be quoting 2 outside sources. And the purpose of these, you're probably not going to use the sources to teach you how to do the thing. So it's a good idea if you choose something for the speech that you already know how to do well, that you're already an expert at. How to throw a baseball, or how to, you know, play a video game, or how to bake bread, or whatever it is. You know, what's that new skill you've been cultivating during lockdown, right? During shelter in place. So choose something you already know how to do. So then your sources won't be, you know, the Betty Crocker cookbook or whatever. Your sources will be citing sources that give information that add interest to your speech, that make the speech more robust and more filled out and more about something rather than just the how-to part. So for example, maybe you're teaching us how to make spaghetti. Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. And the first thing that you need to do is you need to cut up your tomatoes, okay? And so I have here 5 beautiful tomatoes that we're going to use to do this. I am choosing to use, and I'm going to make up this information. I don't know if this is true at all. I'm not a very good cook, but I'm choosing to use Roma tomatoes. According to foodnetwork.com, Roma tomatoes are the best tomatoes to use for spaghetti sauce because they have a medium acidity and a sweeter flavor or whatever. Okay, so then again, you're not quoting the source about, you're not quoting a source that's teaching you how to do something. You're giving more information. I'm going to teach you how to do this origami. According to the book, A History of Origami, origami first started in the late 8th century BC. Again, I'm making all of the facts that I ever use, I'm making up. And blah, 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 blah. Or I'm going to show you how to throw a fastball. According to sportsillustrated.com, the fastball is one of the best pitches because it blah, 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 blah. Okay. So you're going to use 2 sources. They need to be clearly cited. So when you are doing your outline, write the quote in the outline and the source in the outline so I can see that you do that. The other reason about having a really good outline to turn into me is that if you forget to say something, and again, because you're recording these, this is probably happening less than it might in a normal speech, but I'm going to be able to see, okay, he meant to say that quote there, she meant to say that quote there, they just forgot. Okay, so the more detailed your outline, the better. But in your outline, you should have the quote that you're going to quote and the source somewhere in there. Okay, and these quotes should be in the body of the speech. This is not for your attention getter. This is to give you, again, a more robust, a more filled out body of the speech, to add some interest besides just do this, do this, do this in the body of your speech. All right, so you're going to need a typed outline and then a typed works cited page. I am an APA girl because I have degrees in communication and psychology, so APA is my preference. But if you already know MLA, or MLA is what you use for your major or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. As long as it is a neatly formatted works cited page, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, the other requirement for this speech is that you need to have a visual aid. And we're going to talk, I'll do a video about visual aids in a little bit. So you want to make sure that you have a visual aid. And it'll be a little bit different now because, you know, in the classroom, if you wanted to do how to change your brakes, you had to bring in pictures and that type of stuff. Right now, if you want to do a speech on how to change your brakes, you could go out into your garage and videotape yourself while you're changing your brakes, giving your speech. So there'll be a few differences there. But for this speech, you're going to use some sort of visual aid. And the most important thing, and we'll talk more about do's and don'ts of visual aid, but the most important key thing to remember for a visual aid is that your visual aid should add information to your speech that the audience couldn't get just by listening. Okay? So if I'm saying, okay, well, I'm going to teach you how to do some stuff in Microsoft Excel. You'll need your computer, you'll need a computer mouse, you'll need a pen, okay? Like, those aren't good visual aids. Showing us a computer mouse and a pen don't add new information. I can say you need a computer mouse and a pen, and every one of you in your brains can say, oh, okay, I need a computer mouse and a pen. Showing you that doesn't teach you anything new. But actually putting an Excel sheet, and again, you're imagining you're in front of a class or an audience, putting an Excel sheet up on, you know, a screen next to you and walking the audience through that, that's going to be something that's useful for them instead of just describing. So you want to think about your visual aid adding new information to the speech that the audience couldn't get just by listening. Okay? It has to enhance your words versus just not do anything. Okay, and then finally, You want to speak in extemporaneous style. And most of you did so well in extemporaneous style. And that's something I just want to go over a little bit. So a few key tips from what I've seen in the other speeches. So first of all, make sure that you are putting it in outline form versus essay form. The other thing is make sure that you are paying very close attention to the format. So having all of the parts in your introduction, having all of the parts in the body of your speech, having all those things are the main parts that you're graded on. Having a visual aid, having an interview, having 2 sources cited, those types of things. Again, sorry, for this one you don't need an interview, okay? The interview was for the first one. For this one you could do an interview, but you can also use other sources. Make sure that your gestures are natural and make sure that you're standing up. So most of you stood up. There was a few people that didn't. I think it's better for a more formal speech. When I'm talking to you like this, if you were just having a conversation with somebody, this is less formal, what I'm doing right here. And so in that type of situation, sitting down might be fine. But for this, I really want to get to see your whole body and how you're presenting. So make sure that you're standing up for the camera and be natural with your gestures. So many of you kind of stood a little stiff, and so you could loosen up a little, and when we talk, we use gestures. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, and then again, make sure you have the formatting, make sure you have it in outline form, make sure you're citing your sources. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what kind of sources are good to use. Now, this again is going to be tricky. So some sources that you can use in general: books, magazines, films or documentaries, YouTube videos, websites. The key thing that you want to do is make sure that things are credible. You want to use credible sources. And when we say credible, what we mean is that they're presented by somebody who knows what they're talking about. All right? So make sure when you're using books, again, one of the keys is to look for books that are who they're published by. So not only the author, but also the publishing company. Because especially like now, if you're getting books on like Amazon Kindle or something, you can go right now and publish a book on Amazon Kindle. It takes probably half an hour once you set up your account. So anybody can publish, just like anybody can publish on YouTube, anybody can self-publish a Kindle book and sell it, okay? So especially like electronic resources doesn't necessarily mean they're credible. And there are some publishing companies out there that would publish information that's not considered very credible as well. Now, credibility really depends on your topic as well. So for this speech, if you're teaching us how to apply eyeshadow, Cosmo might be a very credible source. If you're teaching us how to reduce global warming, Cosmo is probably not a very credible source. So credibility can vary a little. But things you want to think about are who's writing the source, how old is the source. We're getting to a day and age where, information is becoming obsolete very, very quickly. Information that hadn't changed in like 100 years is becoming obsolete because our physics is getting better and our archaeology is getting better. And so all these things are improving. And so it's when I first was getting my undergrad, the rule was 10 years, that your source shouldn't be older than 10 years. Now, there are some classic studies that you use that might be older than 10 years, but in general, when we were citing sources, they said 10 years. I think now it's more like 2 or 3, depending on the source. Now, again, if you're talking about calculus that hasn't changed in however long, then you might be able to use an older source and get away with it, and that's the same information. But if you're talking about a lot of different things related to current events, or again, even things like what we know about physics or what we know about the origins of life, or things that we thought we had answers to are really changing rapidly in this day and age. So depending on your topic, you really want to try and find the most up-to-date sources. I imagine a lot of you, and I'm going to be more lenient. So usually I require you have to have one book or you have to have, I'm going to be more lenient with this time because I know you can't get to the library. And there are some books I would encourage you to go onto the Wabansie Library website because they do have books that you can take out like an ebook format. But I imagine a lot of you will use websites. So when it comes to websites, you want to make sure that, again, your websites are credible. And so the gold standard in websites are ones that have .edu, .org, .gov. Okay, so those are just kind of, if you want to use a web source, that's what you should use from. .com and .net are, anybody can post something. So I can go and create a website right now and write whatever the heck I want and it not be true. And, you know, that's not very credible. Same for things like about.com or ehow.com, those types of sites. Anybody can go and write something on those websites and they do for money. So that's something bad. Another thing to look at for the website is like, what's the quality of the website? How, if there's ads everywhere, it's probably not a super credible site. Okay. Now, and there's ones that have some ads. So I think if you went to newyorktimes.com, there would be ads on there. But you can tell the ones where you click on the webpage and there's like this much writing and the whole rest of the thing is all different pop-ups and ads and that type of thing. So that's one thing to consider. Again, the date that it was updated. Also the author of the website. So maybe there is a Harvard law professor that has his own personal website on a .com place and he blogs about legal advice or whatever. Well, that's probably a pretty credible source, even though it is a .com, you know, that's cool. You can use that. So again, and this is just important in general, I think, in this age of misinformation and fake news and, you know, from both sides. I'm not trying to be political here, but I just think there's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of bad. Facebook drives me nuts when I look at Facebook because people just post stuff without checking. Like they could take 2 seconds and check it and not perpetuate bad information over and over and over again. And it would just make the world, remember we talked about noise last time? It would make the world less noisy if we knew that the information coming in was good, credible information versus just crap that nobody bothered to check. So I get a little passionate about that because I really just hate that the world is gunked up with all this. You know, it's not even about having a belief that's different. It's about blatant lies. Like, here is a picture of this person. No, it's not a picture of that person. No, this is not that. Like, anyway. So, not just as an assignment, but like, find it in your soul to want to perpetuate good information and give your audience good information, knowledgeable information, because it's the right thing to do and because that makes you a great speaker and all those different reasons. Okay, so we're going to be looking for credible sources cited in your speech. Okay, and that was a tangent from what I was talking about before, which is that you should present this in extemporaneous style. All right, so that is kind of the intro of this. I'm going to make another video that talks about, just because when they're super long, it takes forever to upload, first of all, but also it's easier than you don't have to run through everything. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 more videos about this topic. I'm going to make a video about the outline and the format for your how-to speech. And then I'm going to make another video, which will probably be a little bit shorter, on visual aids. So, and I'll probably do them all right now and then put them up just so you can have them instead of releasing them on the other days. Okay, so again, to recap, great job on your self-intro speeches. Your next speech is the how-to speech, which is due on Monday. Pretty much exactly the same. We're going to add a couple of things in the introduction. I'll talk about that in the next video. But you can start thinking right now about what you want to do your how-to speech on and start doing some research on that topic. And then watch the next video to teach you how to start writing that speech. Okay, see you soon.